Despite being a perennial doormat for most of their existence in the SEC, Kentucky has had some great quarterbacks. The hefty-lefty Jared Lorenzen, #1 draft pick Tim Couch, and going really far back, Georgia Blanda. But arguably one of the best in the history of the program is one man named Andre Woodson. Unlike the other names I listed that may be more common to the casual fan, Woodson was one of the few great SEC quarterbacks that were underrated and under the radar during their career. He was the captain of the ship for 2 historically great seasons at the University of Kentucky and led them to one of the biggest upsets in college football history during what was a crazy 2007 college football season. Despite winning at a program like Kentucky and proving himself against some of the best defenses in the country, he wasn't highly looked at by GMs and scouts in the NFL. After a so-so Senior Bowl performance, his draft stock plummeted, and albeit into a bad situation he got drafted into. In today's video, we'll chronicle the life of Andre Woodson from his time in high school and his career at UK to his short NFL career and what he's doing now. First, before we start, welcome to the channel, guys. I cover stories ranging across all sports, including rise and falls and what happened to's. I appreciate all the support, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and comment below in the comment section to tell me who or what I should cover next. You should also watch my video on what happened to Cole Bryant, as these quarterbacks were stars in the 2007 college football season. Without further interruption, let's talk about Andre Woodson. Andre's football story started in Fort Lee, Washington. His mom, Robin Woodson, was stationed in the Army with his father, growing up as a military brat, moving from post to post with his mother after his parents divorced when he was only the age of 2. He eventually arrived in Radcliffe, Kentucky, where Andre went to North Hardin High School. He was a letterman in football and basketball, but football was his bigger future, where he was a legit 4-star quarterback and had offers from Kentucky, Penn State, and West Virginia. He chose Kentucky so he could play for Coach Rich Brooks under his air raid offense. This would prove to be a match made in heaven, but not necessarily right away. During his freshman season, he served as backup to Jared Lorenzen and Shane Boyd, appearing and starting in only one game. And the 2003 and 2004 season, which were both terrible seasons, only won a total of 5 games during this stretch. But once Andre got the keys to the team, it didn't start out great. In 2005, the Cats went 3-8 and weren't really competitive at all, and all their losses were by double digits, including the loss they took at home to Urban Meyer in Florida, who absolutely just destroyed them, and especially South Carolina. Woodson had a less than stellar season, only completing 58% of his passes, while throwing for 1,644 yards and 6 touchdowns. This was a low point for Kentucky, not just for Woodson and Rich Brooks' tenure at the school, but also for the Kentucky football program. They had been dealing with sanctions that were involved in the Hal Mumme era, where there was money being handed out to recruits. But next season, this would all change. Coming into the season during spring practice, it appeared Woodson would lose his position to his backup, Curtis Pulley. Spurred by this, and also one of his friends who was stuck in a coma for months after a car accident, Woodson started taking football a lot more seriously, spending way more time in the gym lifting weights, began leading the team in practice, and soon became the clear choice to be a starting quarterback. The next season, the Cats' fortunes got a whole lot better, but honestly, again, not right away. They started off 3-3 heading into their 6th game of the season, and they were able to pull out 5 of their last 7 games, making an appearance in the Music City Bowl, where they beat a up-and-coming Clemson team who was led by Tommy Bowden, who had a young assistant on the sideline named Dabo Sweeney. It was Kentucky's first 8-win season in 22 years, and their first bowl win in that many years as well. You can see the increase in Woodson's performance. You could see he threw for almost 2,000 more yards and doubled his touchdowns. He also became the 3rd Kentucky quarterback in program history to throw for over 30 touchdowns. But this wouldn't be his last season in Lexington, as things for the Cats seemed to be turning around. The tide was about to turn in Lexington as their offense was about to lead them to the biggest wins in program history. Led by future NFLers Jacob Tamme and Steven Johnson, Woodson had a good amount of talent around him to make his exit from the program a memorable one. Unlike today, back before the Cards joined the ACC and many schools switched their big rivalry games to Thanksgiving weekend, UK had a big dog come to town in number 9 Louisville, who has always been the best football school, many say, in the state. The Cards were coming in with a lot of hype and were favored to win the Big East Conference that year. After a back-and-forth game, the Cards QB Brian Braun almost pulled the Cards to victory, but Woodson had other plans. With only 28 seconds left, Woodson threw a 57-yard touchdown pass to Stevie Johnson to knock off the number 9 Cards, the first time the Wildcats had been a top 10 team in almost 30 years. They would carry the success and momentum as well as a number 19 ranking with them to beat their next 2 opponents, Arkansas and FAU. I almost forgot to mention that Woodson, before the FAU game, had a streak of over 250 pass attempts without throwing a single touchdown, before finally throwing one at FAU after 325 attempts, which is an NCAA record. The Cats then dropped a top 15 game versus South Carolina on the road. Woodson had an average game throwing 227 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick, but it wasn't enough, as the Gamecocks took them down 38-23. Despite this, the Cats bounced back and were able to defeat the eventual national title winners, the LSU Tigers, in one of the biggest upsets in college football history. The Tigers blew a 13-point lead in the third quarter, and the Cats pulled away in a triple overtime battle in the Brew Glass. Woodson didn't really have a great game, throwing for 3 touchdowns and 2 picks, but he showed up really when it counted. The Cats then had to turn back around and face Tim Tebow and the heavily favored to win the national championship Florida Gators at home, which they almost were able to pull off, but the Gators were able to just simply pull away just based on their talent. Woodson and the Cats started off hot with a 33-yard touchdown pass to Dahee Lyons to take an early lead, but Florida scored on 2 consecutive drives and never looked back. Woodson had an incredible game, throwing for over 400 yards and throwing for 5 touchdowns. Kentucky then lost 3 of their last 4 games, but ended their year in the Music City Bowl being powerhouse football school Florida State 35-28. Woodson on the day had 358 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, and 64% completion percentage to wrap up his career at Kentucky. And not to mention, but during the season, Woodson was very much considered a Heisman hopeful. Woodson was easily one of the best quarterbacks in college football that year, and he led the SEC in both passing yards and touchdowns. He was named to the second team All-SEC, and his next challenge was the NFL. Woodson, despite a great 2 seasons at UK, didn't get the respect from coaches and scouts despite playing in the SEC against the nation's best defenses week in and week out. Like I mentioned before, after Woodson had an okay Senior Bowl, he fell on many people's draft boards so much, in fact, that he dropped all the way down to the 6th round to be drafted to the New York Giants. The QBs that were picked ahead of him include Matt Ryan, Joe Flacco, and even a QB that he had beat the year prior, and Brian Braun. In response to Woodson dropping in the draft, he honestly didn't know why he fell so far. "I really didn't know," Woodson said. "To this day, don't really know why I dropped as much as I did." Despite Woodson's optimism, he landed on a team with an elite quarterback, quote-unquote elite, and Eli Manning, David Carr, and former Kentucky quarterback Jared Lorenzen, so the odds were very much stacked against him. After training camp, the Giants waived Woodson during final cuts. He was re-signed to the team's practice squad a day later, where he remained until October 23rd, where he was released again. Woodson was later re-signed to the practice squad again in October 27, 2008, after 1 season with the team, and he was re-signed to a future contract on January 12, 2009, but he was waived in September 5th of that same year. After his stint with the Giants, division rival the Washington football team signed Woodson to their practice squad only 3 days after the Giants released him. This was more than likely a ploy to gain some insight into the New York Giants offense, who they just so happened to play in the first game that year. But Woodson didn't really fit in well, and there wasn't really much room for him in the quarterback room, so he was released a month later in November. Like Colt Brennan, who I covered in a recent video, y'all should, really check it out. He signed with the Hartford Colonels in spring of 2010, but again was released from the team. Woodson seemed to give up on his pro football dreams and decided the best move was to simply go back to school. Woodson joined Joker Phillips' coaching staff as a graduate assistant for 3 seasons and stayed for a coaching change as Mitch Barnhart decided to can Joker and hire Mark Stoops, which would arguably be the best thing that has ever happened to the program. He then left to become the wide receiver coach at Morehead State, and it seemed like this was just the beginning to what had been a great coaching career. But during this time, Andre had his first child, Andre III, who was born on his 29th birthday. Like most, this was definitely a life-changing moment in Woodson's life. It seemed like because of this, he left and decided to take a job with Amazon, where he's currently at today. All in all, Woodson was a good quarterback who had a lot of size and a winner mentality to go with it. I believe these couple things, like going to a school like Kentucky, that garners little respect to begin with. The scouts believing his flaws like a slow release and lack of arm strength mattered, and a bunch of other reasons that we still won't know today, honestly. All in all, it seems like Woodson is happy where he's at in life, and maybe one day he'll get back into coaching, since I believed he had a budding future in that. And he'll always be remembered simply as one of the greatest players in Kentucky history, and he'll forever be in Big Blue Nation's heart. If you like this video, go ahead and support it by hitting that like and subscribe button. Let me know who or what I should cover next. And again, make sure you watch my video on Colt Brennan as well as my other videos, as I have a bunch of others in the works. And make sure you go follow us on Twitter and Instagram. The link is in my bio. The link is in the description. And until next time, guys, peace.